Thank you everyone for coming today. Today we have Professor Angrave to talk to us about ClassTranscribe, so take it away.
Hi, welcome. My name is Lawrence Angrave. I'm a teaching professor at computer science here. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about ClassTranscribe, which is my project. Except it's not just me, it's actually a whole load of students. So I have undergraduates working on this, I have graduate students working on this. So it's been really fun to kind of work as a team on this. Let's get a little bit started. First of all, what do you think about when you think about UIUC? Here's some things I think about. First of all, UIUC has a fantastic background actually in working with students with physical disabilities. So we have a kind of world-class teams here that actually often compete in the Olympics. We have wonderful spaces where students actually work together. So this, for example, is part of kind of the engineering area, and we have similar spaces in Siebel, inside computer science. And then we have students doing amazing things. So this is some of my students where we went to NASA and flew in what's called the Vomit Comet, and then tried to kind of debug some code because our drone wasn't working quite well in zero G. And I think that's me just behind there. So you can't quite see me there because this is what happens to hair in zero gravity. But anyway, so we do lots of kind of fun things and have lots of kind of fun at computer science with interesting projects. Yeah, we have to do well in our courses and stuff, but that's just kind of the scales and arpeggios, kind of learning about kind of the basics of how to build systems which don't just work for, say, for just one laptop, but work for everybody. So anyway, let's get started. First of all, I want to mention that about 20% of students in STEM have some kind of disability, and yet we don't see them. We don't. But why is that? Well, that's partly because many disabilities are not visible. So, for example, you may not know that someone actually has color blindness or low vision. And so I've listed a few examples here. And then we have things like ADHD and ADD, which can make it hard for someone to kind of focus and concentrate. And then sometimes we break our wrist, or perhaps you having a kind of eardrum issue, say from kind of flu or something, or maybe you're in a quiet environment where things that we create for students with disabilities would help you. And so that's kind of the starting point of ClassTranscribe, which is to say, how can we make a better video system? How can we make something like Netflix, but for learning? And perhaps, as you know, YouTube actually started as a project from UIUC. So we're kind of following in those footsteps, but thinking about how we made a better video system for learning. Right. So this is a quick screenshot of kind of what we built. Maybe we'll have time to kind of play with it in a moment. And this is ClassTranscribe. So you'll see that I've got a lecture going on here. It's actually a computer science lecture, I think, talking about a way to do searching. And in this case, the searching might be on a path because you want to get your robot or your car to a certain spot. But it could be an abstract idea as well. Maybe the path you're trying to find is something to do with, I don't know, finance, or something to do with winning a game. And you can see we've got kind of captions and transcriptions on the right here. But once you've got the text, now we can do some fun things with this. Now we can say, well, maybe we should display it in a different way, but maybe as well, we should translate it as well. So here's where we've changed the interface now and said, you know what, I don't want to see the original text, which we captured automatically using speech to text. So we take the audio and convert it into a certain format, feed that into a neural network, and it gives us back the kind of stuff of which we could turn into a transcript and captions. But now we can then take that text and feed that into another piece of computer science, another neural network that's been trained to connect English to other languages. And in this case, say we can actually see it in Spanish. We actually also translate it into many other languages, I think Chinese, for example, as well, and Korean. But in addition to actually kind of changing and transforming the information so that it's useful for everybody, why don't we understand how students are using this system? So in a kind of classic lecture, yeah, you can see when someone's paying attention, you can see when students are learning. Well, we can do now the same thing with analytics for how students actually learn. So let's capture events to see what students are doing and when. So for example, we can capture things like, oh, a certain student has watched a bit more of the video, or maybe they're seeking through a video, or maybe they've paused it, or maybe they've stepped away to do something else. Maybe they've swatched a different video, maybe they got bored with one, for example, or they're watching it at twice speed. So we can actually capture all of these events and put them into a database. And a database is just like a logbook. It's like a table. So we can say, okay, let's put a new row in that says this user did this action at this certain time, for example. And then we can actually start to kind of look at that data. So let's have a quick look at this, and then we'll kind of go back to actually kind of playing with the software itself. So for example, I might want to say, well, look, we've built this thing. Is it actually useful? Are people actually doing better in our courses? And so we can generate some visualizations and some simple plots from this. So for example, here's the use of ClassTranscribe in an ECE course, an electrical and computer engineering course. And we wanted to know, did it actually help? And you can see this data, each little dot here represents an actual student, where we said, well, okay, how about in this course, ClassTranscribe exists, and we'll make a note of how many video minutes you watched and what's your final score in the course. And you can see that that there is a very, very slight trend here. So if it's just kind of like, oh, ClassTranscribe helps a bit, then on average, the more minutes that you watch, the more likely you are to have a better score. But let's have a look at another course where we actually said, you know, ClassTranscribe is the way to actually kind of learn the content. And then we can do some more sophisticated analysis here, where we can look at students that say use ClassTranscribe and others which did not, perhaps they read the course book, and look at things like how did they do in, say, the final exam. And we can look at whether it helped all students, or perhaps just the kind of honors students, or perhaps it helped even students that were struggling in the course. So we did this, and you can plot this and say, oh yeah, look, the students in this group, for example, they did better in the final exam versus these students which didn't do so good because they didn't use ClassTranscribe so much. They used it less than the average number of minutes compared to their peers. To persuade someone else that you've actually got something important, then we'll use some statistical effects. And the game we want to play here is to show that statistically, these two groups come from are statistically different. And so researchers care about something called a p-value, which kind of says we're making a bet that we've actually found something which is significant, meaning that the change that we've made has actually produced the results. So we turn to our statistical friends and say, what should we use for this kind of data? And then we can actually kind of look at this in more detail and make a persuasive argument and actually write and present a computer paper, a conference about this. So that's kind of some of the things we're doing with ClassTranscribe data. And you can even go further and say, well, what if people are doing things like searching? Does that actually lead to kind of better exam scores? And in this case, we found that, yeah, things like if people are using the search functionality, if they're watching it at different speeds, if they're choosing to use full screen, these all are predictive of someone earning a better score in the final exam. So this is kind of some of the data analytics and visualizations and statistics that we do with this stuff. But you don't have to stick with just the kind of quantitative data. Why don't we ask students as well what they thought of ClassTranscribe? So here's some kind of comments that they had. So yeah, I love having subtitles. They really like being able to search. So here's an idea. If you actually have all of the captions, why do we make it so that you can actually find the right part of the video so you can actually do well on a homework? Or perhaps you want to prepare for your exam tomorrow and you say, oh yeah, wait, what was that thing again? And you quickly want to be able to find the right video and the right moment inside the video to kind of review something which you're not quite sure upon. So our system allows you to do that. Here's another student that likes to be able to kind of type in a keyword and find the right spot in the video. And other students said, yeah, look, if all senior citizens have something called Life Alert, then all STEM classes should have ClassTranscribe. And what STEM, let's see if I can remember, science, technology, engineering, and math courses. So that includes kind of computer science. So that's kind of some of the things we're working on. We've got time now for a quick demo, so let's do that. All right, so this is ClassTranscribe. Like I said, it's built by students. I've written some of the code as well. We put the code on something called GitHub, which allows us to share all the kind of code changes that we make. And then we build it and we run it on a server at the university. And so it allows us to then present videos, much like Netflix or YouTube, to all the students. So for example, okay, let's look at my course, for example. So let's say that you are a sophomore or a junior and you've enrolled in my course. So you've enrolled inside CS 241, so you might watch these videos. Okay, so I'll say, look at the heap video. Let's go and play that. Okay, and off we go. And so now you can kind of hear me, and it recorded me as well. All right. So we have captions over here, but let's say now that you've come back and you're working on your homework and you're working on a computer assignment, and you say, you know what, I forgot how malloc works. So what was this malloc thing again? And so now you can kind of quickly find it. So it turns out I talk about malloc twice in this particular video. You could actually jump to that. Or you could kind of say, well, actually, it turns out that I talk about malloc a lot in this course. And malloc, by the way, is a way to say to the operating system, oh, you know, I'm really working on a bigger problem right now. I need some more memory, please. So please say, find me 100 bytes, or find me 1,000 bytes, or a million, or a billion bytes, because I want to store my data inside memory. And it's a kind of very low-level way to do that, which is one of our, which is useful for one of our courses in CS. And if you didn't want to read it in English, so let's cancel that. Maybe we want to switch to a different language. So I have lots of language choices here. So let's try simplified Chinese today. Okay, so that's a little bit about the interface, and maybe I want to actually say, you know, this is such a great video, I want to generate a link and I want to kind of share that, or even share this current spot in the video, because I'm a little confused right now and I want to maybe talk about this spot inside my video. So that's what we have. The next thing we're building with this is the ability to turn a video into a book. Now, where's my cursor gone? Oh, no, it's eaten my cursor. Oh, that's because I'm on two screens. There we go. Let's turn it off. Right. And so we want to be able to say, look, I've got a video. I've got all the captions. Maybe I can actually kind of generate this into a book. Maybe people don't always want to watch just a video. Maybe they want to have like an audio version, or maybe they want to kind of read the captions as well. So we're working on doing that. So yeah, I think I've spoken for several minutes now. So let's kind of maybe turn this over to questions and comments.
I had one question. How do you feel that tools like ClassTranscribe or other educational tools are relevant during this pandemic, or how will they be becoming more increasingly relevant in the future?
Okay, so for this particular tool, it's become very relevant for the pandemic, because we have a lot of lectures today which are held online, and also it's been useful for people that kind of want to have an interface which works for students with disabilities as well. So for example, not everyone can use a mouse, and so hey, maybe we should have a lot of screen shortcuts. And it turns out, of course, that actually that helps kind of everybody. Okay, let's turn it off. The kind of other comment is that even like in a pandemic, maybe you go to a live lecture, but I don't know about you, but I don't remember everything from a lecture. And so being able to kind of review that content and find it later is really important for kind of everybody to be able to kind of look at something again. Or maybe you are kind of on a bus or on a treadmill and you want a way just kind of see things with captions as well. And then kind of the other comment here is that yes, some people use YouTube, etc., but YouTube's got full of distractions. It's got adverts. It's got, you know, your latest cat videos or whatever on the side. And so having an interface which allows students to pay attention and to kind of engage with the course, I think is really important. And that's particularly important right now when it's really hard to stay kind of focused during this pandemic. So yeah, we're finding it kind of to be quite useful.
Yeah, so one of the other questions we got was oftentimes like captions for technical heavy courses often get mixed up or they're incorrect because of all the technical jargon that's in there. How are you ensuring that captions on ClassTranscribe for these STEM heavy courses are accurate?
Okay, so here's one of the exciting things about ClassTranscribe, which is actually people can edit the captions. So So no captions kind of perfect. Today, of course, human captions are more likely to be correct than computer-generated captions. But even then, if you don't have someone that's an expert in the domain, in the field, maybe they didn't quite hear the word correctly, or maybe they just guessed, right? Or maybe they didn't know how to spell it exactly. However, students in the course often actually kind of know what those words are, or maybe the course staff, like the teaching assistants, for example, could help as well. So we're kind of using crowdsourcing to make those captions correct. And in fact, some faculty are offering credit, like bonus credit. So if you make 10 edits, etc., we'll give you some bonus points for the course. So I could let's go and find one. Let's go to a different course, or let's go and pick a new course. Let's see what happens. I've seen recently. Let's try artificial intelligence. We will try one of these. See if we can find something we want to fix. Okay, we'll just pick a random video here. Okay. All right, so this says naive Bayes. Maybe I want to kind of say capitalize that, because just as an example. Okay, all right, done. So it's really quick and easy to make that. And so this is useful to get those domain words right, because those are exactly the kind of words that people want to search for. So perhaps later someone's going to be looking for the word Bayes, for example.
I had another question here. How do you feel that this field, education and inclusivity, could become more inclusive, in your opinion?
Oh, how could it become more inclusive? I think that's a really great question. So I think the first thing is, let me stop the video playing in the background, is we need to listen to students, and we need to understand how we can make our courses better, and which parts of the course are most exciting, which parts need additional work. Sometimes students find a course difficult because, say, they're just enrolled in a lot of courses, or sometimes, say, the math that they took didn't cover all the concepts that a course just expects them to have, right? Or maybe the course uses a different programming language. So kind of understanding where students are coming from, I think, is part of that. And not treating all students the same is also, I think, really important. So some students come from schools which, say, already teach some computer science, but many students don't have that experience. And so trying to kind of make it so that there are kind of opportunities for everybody to succeed and do well in our courses, I think is really important for a department like computer science, but honestly important for all departments. And so computer science does things like, we have town halls. So I think it's every semester, but certainly every other semester, we have a big town hall. We kind of invite students to come talk, and we listen, and the department head listens to students. Plus we have surveys and that kind of stuff. But I think that's the most important thing in terms of inclusivity, is to actually think about kind of different student needs, and to not treat everybody the same, but to realize that people have different needs and at different times as well. The second part is to kind of think about research. So we're not in a vacuum. Other people are kind of investigating this, and to kind of take on kind of best practices, and maybe where those best practices don't exist, be a leader in this field. So, for example, I'm actually talking about ClassTranscribe at an accessibility conference later this week. So sharing ideas, coming up with trying new ways, kind of innovating. Don't expect the first way that you try something is going to be the best way. So, for example, we've got this this search interface here, which works pretty well. But why don't we be inspired by Google, where maybe you want to have a kind of full screen interface for a whole course, so you can kind of type in words, and then we can think about better ways to kind of present those results. So we're thinking about maybe you're a student that perhaps doesn't have all the background knowledge. Maybe, for example, you've transferred into CS. Or maybe you're a student that has 1 hour before their exam, you're just desperately trying to kind of find the right information. Or maybe you are working on homework, and you've the information you were half awake when you watched the video, but now you want to go back and fill in the details. So these are kind of different use cases, and thinking about those student needs is part of the aim here, to make a kind of a good educational tool. And then we wanted to work with things like screen readers, so that if you are blind, you can still kind of operate the website, you can still listen to what's going on. And in terms of, say, our interface where we can turn videos into books, then that description of what an image is can actually also be used for screen readers, because now you've got the text, you can turn that text back into audio as well. So thinking about how to kind of transfer information between different worlds, between the text world and the audio world and the visual world, and to do that not just as a kind of computer science problem, like I want to turn a word into some text, but to actually think about it in terms of the individual and what the individual is trying to do, and their needs is part of the game. I mean, the other kind of accessibility thing to think about is sometimes we don't have a big laptop. Sometimes we're just watching things on our little phones, or sometimes you're watching something and you don't have great network bandwidth. So what can we do to support students in all these different situations? And lastly, we're all social creatures. So, maybe we want to have an interface that allows you to put emoticons on a video at different points, like, yay, great point, or yeah, I should remember this later, right? So to be able to connect to our emotional side and to our social side, like maybe this is a point in the video that I want to chat about with my other friends in the course, or maybe this is the point that I'm just totally confused at this point, so I want to go and review it later. Or maybe, hey, yeah, I need this point in later because it's going to connect to my homework. Or as an instructor, maybe I want to kind of do a shout out at different points in the video. So maybe we want to, so this is like an idea we had recently, is like maybe for the people that edited the captions and made it better, have a shout out to all those people that actually kind of contributed to a course. So this idea of like continuous integration and continuous curation of content. So yeah, there's lots of things to do and lots of things to explore. I've got graduate students that are going to be like writing a thesis on this. We want to be able to kind of take it as a scientific method idea, meaning that we want to have ideas about how to improve things, but then we actually want to be able to measure it. We want to be able to see, did it say improved learning? Can we see effects both in terms of like improved exam scores, but also let's ask students what they think. Have we built an interface, for example, that people like to use? Are we making interfaces that people are more sticky, so they use it for longer, for example?
Kind of one last question to wrap everything up. What are some of the skills you recommend that a student learns, or what are some of the things that a student will need to get involved with this type of research or to even like further this field?
Oh, wow. Okay. So the project itself is written in, there's a front end part. So we're using something called React, which is a way to make nice responsive HTML pages. You touch them, things move around, etc. On the server side, well, we have a database. We also have our code written in .NET, which is kind of similar to Python. It has slightly better performance, and it also allows us to talk to the database without having to write any database type stuff. And it scales really well. So we also need people to kind of test what it's like to scale to 52,331 users, which happens to be the total enrollment of UI/UC right now. And so being able to write small programs to do these kind of like these tests is important. And then other students who are interested in the kind of the science side of it and the educational science of it. So if they're being able to kind of read a paper that someone else has been done, for example, or to be able to produce plots. So none of the plots we want to do by hand anymore. So using things like Python pandas and R to do statistical analysis, that's interesting to some students. I think this is kind of project where no matter what you're interested in computer science is, there's something to be done. I mean, so for example, there's no point just learning about, say, JavaScript and HTML if you're not also thinking about how to make a better interface and making an interface that works, for example, with people that can only type, Or maybe we want to do things where we want to be able to send our data off to the cloud because that's where we do the transcription. So knowing how to work with remote services is useful as well. So there isn't a quick, easy answer to your question. I think kind of all of computer science is kind of potentially relevant to this. The data analytics, the big data, the scaling stuff. You want to be able to write code that other people can understand in the future. So code is not just about making it kind of work well, making it scale well, but also to make it meaningful to others in the future, so we can continue to build on this. Does that help? Does that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for. Oh, yeah.
That's it. That's it. I can talk about this for hours. So I'm happy to answer any question. I think, and lastly, we have a meeting every week. We talk about what people are doing when people are stuck. We want to know about that because we want to be a team. So even during this pandemic, we have a chat interface and we kind of chat to each other about, okay, how do I do this, or what's the best way to doing that? And so it's a very kind of social and community around this to try and make this product. And last, it's really fun to actually make something which other people are using.
Yeah, thank you so much, Professor Angrave, for talking to us about the incredible work you've done with ClassTranscribe.
Thank you.